Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we are studying, oh gosh, this is going to drive me nuts. 1 second. I think I was saying that today we're studying Daf Chafei, Daf 25 of Masechta Pesachim. There are some Gishmak and Yonim on today's Daf. So it first starts off, a little bit kind of similar to like things that we were talking about yesterday. Getting Isser Achila and Ana of like Basar B'chalav, Kilei Kerem. Talk about Kilei Kerem a little bit. But then we talk about things like Yayhareg Val Yavor, some famous stuff. So we're going to get to some famous Gemaras over there. Not really juicy sugyas, but very geshmak nonetheless. And then we get to an interesting question at the very end. There's a machlokas about getting benefit against your will and all the different kind of permutations about how that might play out. And it's pretty interesting. So, let's get started. So the beginning is going to be a little bit on the technical side, but then things get exciting. We're going to start in Daf Chavdalad Amud Beis, about maybe 15 or so lines from the bottom. Amur Abaye, says Abaye, Hakol Modim. Everybody agrees by Kilei Kerem. When it comes to Kilei Kerem, we're already experts by Kilei Kerem. We've been learning together for a year. Kilei Kerem has come up a few times. It's usually not very fun, usually very technical, but that's why we know what it is. Kilei Kerem, of course, is if you have a vineyard, and in the vineyard you also have planted grains or greens, so like wheat or whatever. So it says Abai that everyone agrees with Kilei Kerem when it comes to Kilei Kerem, that you're going to get malchus if you consume Kilei Kerem, even if it's not in the regular, normal way. My time, so Abai says, well, because it doesn't say by Kilei Kerem specifically achila, right? It's learnt out, as Rashi points out, because it says pentikda shamaleya demashmelo te'ene mimenu ela tisrfenu ufen lohu lavhu. So Rashi points out that the reason why we know that Kilei Kerem is also b'achila, also b'anoah, is because it says pentikda shamaleya, that lest if you plant them together, then what you plant will become asur. So that's how we know that it's asur b'achila and asur b'anoah. But it doesn't specifically say achila, and therefore it doesn't have to be derech achila or derech hanoah. And therefore, you'll be chayav for Kilei Kerem if you get hanoah, even if it's shelo kederech hanoah, so even if it's not the normal way that you would get benefit from it, and you would be chayav malchus. Meisvei, we have a kasha on Abaye. Isi ben Yehuda Omer, says Isi ben Yehuda, interesting, very interesting. Now, if I were to ask you, how do you know that basar b'chalav is asur? So first of all, when we say asur, we mean asur to eat. So you would of course tell me, well, because it says in the Torah, 3 times, right? Don't cook a kid in the milk of its mother, i.e. milk and meat. It's written in 3 separate places in the Torah. So one time it's asur b'achila, one time it's asur b'anoah, one time it's asur to cook it, bishul. I think that's correct. But the Gemara here seems to be saying that, asking, how do we know that basar b'chalav is asur b'achila, and it doesn't give that answer. Rather, it says, how do we know? Well, nemar kan ki am kadosh ata. Well, because it says in the context of lo svashal g'dei b'chalav imo, that you are a holy nation. V'nemar lahalan, and it also says by treifa v'anshei kodesh tiyun li, that you will be holy to me. Ma lahalan asur afkan asur. Well, just like treifa, you're not allowed to eat. So therefore also basar b'chalav you're not allowed to eat. Now all I know is that you're not allowed to eat basar b'chalav. How do I know that you're not even allowed to get benefit from basar b'chalav? Well, I'll learn it out logically. Well, if you take a look at orla, right, fruits in their first 3 years, you're not allowed to eat them. And they're asur b'anoah, you're not allowed to get benefit from them. And that's something that you didn't even do anything wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with orla. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just, in order to be able to eat it, you have to wait 3 years. And yet, it's asur b'anoah. So something like basar b'chalav, where you did something wrong. You cooked milk and meat. You're not allowed to cook milk and meat. So then certainly it should be asur b'anoah. So basar b'chalav shnevda ba'avera enudin shei asur b'anoah, and certainly basar b'chalav should be asur b'anoah. But the Gemara says, wait, mala orla shekin lo haisel shasa kosher. But 1 second, maybe, from a different perspective, you can argue that orla actually is more stringent than basar b'chalav, in that orla was never mutter. From the earliest point in the life cycle of this tree, of this fruit, it was never permissible. So that makes it more stringent than basar b'chalav, which, the meat on its own was permitted, the milk on its own was permitted. When you mix them together, that's when it became a problem. But up until then, it was permitted. So maybe that makes orla more stringent than basar b'chalav, and therefore maybe you cannot learn out from it. So the Gemara says, okay, fine. So why don't we learn it out from chametz on Pesach, shehoilo shasa kosher, that it had a point where it was permitted to eat, for asur b'hana, and yet it is asur b'hana. Therefore, basar b'chalav, which at one point was permissible to eat, is also going to be asur b'hana. The Gemara says, come on, you can't compare chametz on Pesach, which has a chiyuv karis, to basar b'chalav, which is a lab. Right? Malachametz b'Pesach sheken anush karis. Tomer b'basar b'chalav shenu anush karis. You seriously gonna try to bring a proof from basar b'chalav, from chametz, which is so stringent that if you eat chametz on Pesach, you're chayiv karis. And guess what? It's also asur b'hana. Okay, that's fine, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we should therefore automatically assume that basar b'chalav is also asur b'hana. So kilei karim yochichu. So the Gemara says, alright, fine, so why don't we learn it out from kilei karim? Shein anush karis basar b'hana. That kilei karim, there's no chiyuv kares when it comes to kilei karim, and yet it's asur b'hana. So why don't we also say that basar b'chalav is asur b'hana? And the Gemara and the Brisa seems to be satisfied with that. Okay, that's a good answer. So since kilei karim is asur b'hana, we could assume that basar b'chalav is asur b'hana. Now here's the Gemara's kasha. You ready for this? Vim isa. Now if Abaye, you are correct that kilei karim, you're chayav even if you benefit from them not in their normal way of benefiting. Nifroch. Well, then we should ask about this comparison between kilei karim and basar b'chalav to say that just like kilei karim is asur b'hana, therefore basar b'chalav is asur b'hana. But malak kilei karim shekin loken alein afilu shlo k'derech ha'na'asa. But why should we be able to learn out from kilei karim? Kilei karim is more stringent because kilei karim, you're chayav even if you benefit from them in an abnormal way. So Abaye responds and he says, yeah, so what? You're saying that as if basar b'chalav, you would be pater if you ate it in an abnormal way. But who says that that's true? Maybe basar b'chalav, you'd be chayav also if you eat it in an abnormal way, just like kilei karim. V'Abaye tomer b'may tomer, right? Meaning you're going to say that, like where are you going to say that about? But basar b'chalav, shein loken olav el derech ha'na'asa. What you're going to say that? What do you mean? How can you say that kilei karim is asur b'hana, therefore basar b'chalav is asur b'hana, but kilei karim is so strict that you're chayiv even shelo k'derech ha'na'asa, but ata b'basar b'chalav achila ksiva bei. Abaye says, guess what? By basar b'chalav, it doesn't say anything about achila. It says lo savashu k'di b'chal levimo. It doesn't say achila over there. We learned that out from treifa, and therefore the isra achila is not limited to derech ha'na'asa. And therefore, just like kilei karim, you're going to be chayiv shelo k'derech ha'na'asa. Also, basar b'chalav, you're chayiv shelo k'derech ha'na'asa. And therefore, you could learn out from kilei karim that just like kilei karim is asur b'hana, so also basar b'chalav is asur b'hana. V'idach, and the Manda Amar who argues on Abaye, the Kamosivla, who's asking Akasha on Abaye, Savar lachi kagamar minavela. So he assumed that this is why we learned it out from, it says here nevela, but Rashi points out it means treifa. Manavela derech ha'na'asa, af basar b'chalav derech ha'na'asa. Just like by nevela, i.e. by treifa, it says that you're not allowed to eat it, so it has to be derech ha'na'asa. So therefore also basar b'chalav has to be derech ha'na'asa. Ve'abaye la'achilo kasav achila begufo, lomer shelo kan alav afilu shelo kan derech ha'na'asa. And Abaye says, nah, that's specifically why it doesn't say achila in the context of basar b'chalav, because you're chayiv even shelo k'derech ha'na'asa. Okay, that's the machlokes about basar b'chalav. So interesting. That's how we learn out. So that's how the Gemara wants to learn out that you're not allowed to eat and you're not allowed to benefit from basar b'chalav. I always thought it's because it says lo savashuk li b'chalavimo 3 times. One for achila, one for hanoah, one for bishul. But we seem to be learning out achila from treifa and hanoah from kilei hakerem. Interesting stuff. Vilefroch. And now the Gemara asks, 1 second, why don't we say malakilei hakerem shekin lo haiselo shasa kosher? Why don't we say that kilei hakerem is taka too strict? Why is it too strict? Because it was never permissible. Kilei hakerem, just like orla, from the time that it begins to grow, it's already a problem. So kilei hakerem is the same thing. So how can you learn out basar b'chalav from kilei hakerem? Basar b'chalav, after all, had a period where it was permitted to eat. Therefore, kilei hakerem is more stringent. You can't learn out from it. Avada bar Ahava. So Avada bar Ahava says, now, do you guys think that this is the Rav Ada bar Ahava who is a student of Rav, or the Rav Ada bar Ahava who seems to be a student of Rava? What do you guys think? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe we could figure it out based on context, or maybe just from the fact that it's the student of Rava who keeps on coming up. Maybe that's who this is. Also Meris, this says, Kilei hakerem ikarin ne'esarin v'aysalai shas hakosher kodem ashrasha. Okay, interesting. So Rav Ada bar Ahava says, well, from the fact that we're not asking that question, that what do you mean? But kilei hakerem was always asur. It implies that actually maybe kilei hakerem was not always asur. That actually kilei hakerem, even their roots are asur, and their roots take time to take root, and therefore during that period of time between when the grapes and the other species are planted together, right. Well, meaning from the time that they're planted together, which is a problem. However, until they actually take root together, well, that period, it's actually mutar b'achila. It's only once it takes root that it becomes a problem. And therefore, even kilei hakerem had a period where it was permitted, until before they took root. Mosav of Shmai Asakasha and Rav Ada bar Ahava, Hamayvir otzitz nakum b'kerem. If somebody picks up an otzitz nakuv, I thought it was Daf Tzadi Tes of Masechta Shabbos, but apparently somebody pointed out that it was Daf Tzadi Hey, I think, of Masechta Shabbos. Rabbi Yoel Almog, I remember you very much enjoyed apparently Daf Tzadi Hey of Masechta Shabbos with the otzitz nakuv and otzitz she'eno nakuv. Oh yeah. What were we even talking about over there? I feel like we were talking about Tuma and Tara. I think Rav Shimon said something over there. I don't know. Who can remember? Hakoponim. What's an otzitz nakuv? Who remembers? An otzitz nakuv is a like a planter, like a pot that has a plant in it, and it's got a hole in it. And it's enough for a root to get through there. And I think that was also part of the Gemara there in Masechta Shabbos. So when you have an otzitz nakuv, when you have a planter that has a hole in it, so then it's considered as though it's connected to the ground and planted in the ground. So if you're walking through a vineyard, with a pot that has a hole in it, and in that pot is some kind of plant that would be a kilei hakerem problem plant. So imhosif masayim aser. You hear that? Oh yeah, man. You can't get into like zra'im sugyas without getting super duper technical. But this isn't too bad. But anyways, so listen to this. So if you're walking through a vineyard and you're holding a pot with a plant in it, if the plant grows while you're walking through the vineyard, and it grows 1/200th, so then aser. And what that means is that kilei hakerem are batel if there's 200 times the amount of kilei hakerem if there's 200 times, it's batel by 200 times, right? So if you have like some kilei hakerem, then you have like some non-kilei hakerem. So if you have 200 units of non-kilei hakerem and 1 unit of kilei hakerem, so then it's batel. But if you have 1 unit of kilei hakerem and 199 units of non-kilei hakerem, well then it's all going to be a problem. So if you're walking through this field, through this vineyard, and you're holding a pot, and in the pot there's some kind of plant, if that plant grows 1/200th of its size while you're carrying it, well then it's going to be a problem, because that new growth is not going to be batal. Meaning, if it grows 1 unit to compared to 199 units, it's going to be a problem, right? So meaning, imagine it's got like, well, let's just say it has 199 leaves on it, and then it grows another leaf while you're carrying it. So that'll be a problem. Alright. Anyways, so Hosefin lo Hosef lo. But what's important for us is that we're saying that we seem to only be concerned about what grows on it. Don't seem to be concerned about its roots. So Rava Trei Kroi Ksive, Rava says, don't worry about it. We have 2 psukim, or really 1 pasuk that says 2 things. Has Ksiva Zera u'Ksiva Amleya. It says the seeds, and it says the sort of growth. So, Haketzad, Zeru Meikaro Ba'ashrasha, Zeru Uva, Hosefin lo Hosef lo. Well, when it comes to Kilei HaKerem, when you plant it, if you plant the grapes with the other species, so then it goes from the time that they take root. But if if they weren't planted together, such as over here where the vineyard already existed, this pot already had this plant in it, and now you're just carrying the pot through the vineyard, so then it's going to go based on its growth. Got it? Good. Weiter. Amr Reb Yaakov, says Reb Yaakov, Amr Reb Yochanan, Bakol Misrapin. You can use anything for a medicine. Chutz me'atzei Asherah, the exception being wood from an Asherah tree, from a tree that was used, that was worshipped as avodah zarah. Hey Chidami. Now the Gemara wants to say, I don't get it. If it's a life-threatening illness, well then you can even use atzei asherah, you can even use avodah zarah trees. And if it's not a life-threatening predicament, so then afilu kol isur shebatorah namilo, well then you shouldn't be doing any averas in order to get well. Meaning, so if it's a life-threatening circumstance, so then you should be able to use the avodah zarah tree. If it's a non-life-threatening circumstance, so then forget about avodah zarah. You can't do anything asur. So what's this context where we would say specifically that you're allowed to that you're not allowed to use avodah zarah trees to get better? So the Gemara answers la'olam diika sakana. So really, it's talking about where you are in a life-threatening situation. And even so, still you may not use an avodah zarah tree as medicine, even if it means that you're going to die. Titania, as we learn in the Brisa, Rabbi Eliezer, Omer says Rabbi Eliezer, Im nemer b'chol nafshecha, lama nemer b'chol modecha. This is the Gemara that we saw in Masechta Brachos and Daf Samach Aleph. That if the pasuk says in Shema that you got to serve God with all of your soul, with your whole body, then why does it say that you have to serve God with all of your money? If it says that you have to serve God with all of your money, then why does it say with all of your soul? Kilo, just choose the one that's more extreme and just say that. Why are you saying 2 things? Rather, it's to say to you, aha. So Gemara says, well, because what's more significant is subjective. That you might have some people who their money is more important to them than their life is. And you might have other people who their life is more important to them than their money. Therefore, for the people whose life is more important than their money, well, it says serve God even if it costs you your life. And for the people whose money is more important than their life, then it says serve God even if it costs you all of your money. Wow. Oh, now we get a shtickle into the sugyas of Yayhareg Yavor. These are pretty famous sugyas. I think the main sugya of Yayhareg Yavor is in Masechta Sanhedrin, but here they are as well. So I guess they're here also. So ki also Ravin Rabbi Yochanan, when Ravin came, he said the name of Rabbi Yochanan. The big 3, right? You're allowed to save yourself. By any means, chutz, with the exceptions being avodah zarah, gidei arayos, inappropriate relationships, and shvichus damim, which is murder. Avodah zarah hadam aron. So we already saw that you can't save yourself with avodah zarah. Gilui arayos u'shvichus damim. And how do we know that you're not allowed to save yourself with inappropriate relationships and murder? Titania, as we learned in the Brisa, Rebbe Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Ki kaishir yakum isha re'eu rutzachu nefesh kinadavar hazeh. And it says by Nara Ma'orasa, a betrothed girl. It says if she gets raped, so then, she didn't do anything wrong. Because kasher yakum isha re'eu rutzachu nefesh kinadavar hazeh. It's just like somebody who sneaks up on somebody else and murders them. Well, that's what this rape is considered. So, how come all of a sudden we're bringing in the comparison to murder? How come it's being brought in? So, it's coming to teach us something, and we end up learning something for it. What does that mean? That we compare a murderer where we compare murder to the case of a betrothed girl who gets raped. Just like you're allowed to save this girl from being raped by killing the rapist. Also, a murderer, you're allowed to save the victim by killing the murderer. I feel like it came up already. Yeah, it came up at the beginning of the Masechta by Ababa Machteres. That what's it called? Habala hargo. What? Habala hargo hashkim lahargo. That if somebody's coming to kill you, you can kill him first. Rodef. Okay, but the point is even somebody else can kill that person for you. V'nara ma'orasa merotzech, and we learn out nara ma'orasa from a rotzech. Ma'rotzech Yayhareg val yavor. Af nara ma'orasa Yayhareg val tavor. So just like when it comes to murder, right? If somebody says to you, hey, go murder somebody, otherwise I'm going to murder you. So then you're not supposed to murder that other person. You're supposed to get murdered. Oy boy, doesn't sound like sounds like two bad options. Also, Nara Marasa, so the same thing would apply to Nara Marasa, i.e. Gilui Arayos, that if somebody says, hey, either do this Gilui Arayos or your dead meat, so you have to go for the dead meat choice. How do we know this? How do we know that if somebody says to you, hey, either kill that other person or we're going to kill you, that you have to give up your life? So, Svaru, well, it's just logical. Ki Ahuda also the Kami de Rava, like that fellow who came to Rava. Amrle, and he said to Rava, Maridorai, the officer of my city, the official in my city, Amrli, he said to me, Zilkadle leflanya, go kill so-and-so, v'ilo katil nalach, and if you don't kill so-and-so, I'm going to kill you. So, he said to Rava, what do I do? What do I do? If I don't kill him, they're going to kill me. So Amrle, so Rava says to him, L'kteluch v'lo tikta, let them kill you, don't kill this other guy. My chazis didama didach sumak tfei, who says that your blood is redder than his? Maybe his blood is redder than yours. And Rashi says something actually really interesting. It's kind of straight to the left over here in Rashi, in the Dibra Maschum, so Rashi says, in the middle of that Rashi says, that when it comes to being, when it comes to pikuach nefesh, if it's a life threatening situation, so you're allowed to be docha, except for these three situations, you're allowed to be docha anything in the Torah. It overrides anything in the Torah to save yourself. And the reason for that is because the only reason why you're allowed to override a mitzvah in order to save your life is because every yid is the Eibishter loves him so much. Now the thing is, in this case, so you're going to violate an avera, you're going to do an avera of killing somebody else. But the whole reason why you're allowed to save yourself is because God loves you so much. But God also loves him so much. So who knows who God loves more? And therefore, that's not up to you to decide. Interesting stuff. Marber of Ashkechele Ravina. Oh, So Rav Ashi found Ravina the Shaifla Levarte B'Yayhareg de Orla, that he was rubbing his daughter with Goharke de Orla. What are those again? Like these olives that were like unripe olive oil. Amalei. So Rav Ashi said to Ravina, Emuda Amur Rabban B'Shas HaSakana Shelo B'Shas HaSakana Mi Amur. So Rav Ashi said to Ravina, like, why are you using this oil of this orla oil of not yet ripe olives? Why are you using that to rub on your daughter? Because I would say that when the rabbi said it's permitted, that would be as law. If it's a dangerous situation, if it's a life-threatening situation. If it's not a life-threatening situation, then it wouldn't be allowed because it's orla. So Amar Lei, so Ravina says to Rav Ashi, so Ravina said, well, she has a fever, and that is like a life-threatening situation. Ikadamri, that those who say Amar Lei, that Ravina said, Midi derech achina ka'avidna. What did I just say? Did I even I don't know what I just said. I feel like I didn't even say a word. Okay, Amar Lei, Midi derech hana'a ka'avidna. He said, what? Am I doing this in the proper way that you get benefit from? You don't usually use the oil of unripe olives. Usually you use the oil of gishmaka, plump, healthy olives. So therefore, he figured that it was okay to use, even though it wasn't life-threatening, but since it was shelo k'derech hana'a, also it would be permitted. Itmar hana'a haba lo la'adam bal korcho. Interesting. Benefit that comes to a person against his will. That's really interesting. Reminds me of my friend Guy Cherney's master's final project at Betzalel. He did about the what did he call it? Hamishtamesh bal korcho. The forced participant or something like that. The forced user. Interesting. He talks about like initiatives that happen like in cities that against your will you end up becoming part of the experience. Anyways. So here's something interesting. So let's say you're walking down the street and you smell something really good. And what you're smelling though is really avodah zarah, some temple, and they're burning some kind of incense or something. And now you're smelling it. So what do? Do you have to like run the other way? Can you say like, well, I didn't burn this incense. Okay, if it smells, it smells. So it's an interesting question, right? So Idmar, we stated, so benefit, pleasure that comes to a person, pleasure that's not allowed, that's asur, that comes to a person, but it just kind of showed up against his will. So Abaye Amar, Mutaris v'Rava Amar Asur. So Abaye says it's permitted, Rava says it's forbidden. Now, Efshir v'kamichavin, so if he's able to go the other way, v'kamichavin, and he doesn't go the other way, he keeps on walking down the street, and he actually smells it, and he's like, wow, this is pretty geshmak, I love this stuff. Or, lo efshir v'kamichavin, or let's say it was a really crowded street, and he was unable to go anywhere, he was just kind of stuck in a big crowd, and now there's this smell. But v'kamichavin, but he's enjoying it, he's intending to smell it. Kuli amalo plige de asur, everyone agrees that would not be allowed, because in both of those cases, he's intending to smell it, and that would not be allowed. Lo efshir v'lo michavin, if he's unable to leave the scene and he's also not having any intention to get benefit, to get pleasure from it, well, kule amalo plige deshari. Well, in that case, of course, it would be permitted. Ki plige, the machlokus between Abaye and Rava is the efshir v'lo michavin. It's when he was able to go the other way, but at the end of the day, he's not intending to get benefit anyways, right? Let's say he's on his way to a meeting or something. He's just got to get to that meeting. Now, sure, technically he could go walk the other way and get out of there because of the smell, but he's got to get to his meeting, let's say, right? So, Efshir, yeah, he could have ran away, but at the end of the day, he's not intending to benefit from the smell. So, what do you do in that case? So, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who we know from Masechta Shabbos, that his opinion is that Darshan Miskavin is also something that you do not intend to get to do, right? Something that is, I guess you didn't intend to do, is nonetheless asur. Well, who cares that you don't intend to get benefit from it? It's still asur. Kipliga alibid Reb Shimon, where they argue, Rava and Abaye argue according to Reb Shimon, Davashim Miskaven Mutter, who said that something that is unintended is permitted. Abaye Reb Shimon, so Abaye holds like Reb Shimon. That's Davashim Miskaven. Kilu, this person, he could leave, but at the end of the day, he's not intending to get benefit from it, and therefore, it is permitted. Davashim Miskaven is mutter. Rava Amar, whereas Rava says, Adkan Luka Amar, Reb Shimon, Elehechadilo Efsher. Where Reb Shimon says that Davashim Miskaven is mutter, according to Rava, is where you were unable to prevent it from happening in the first place. Where you had no choice but to do this thing in the first place, such as when you're stuck in this crowd, in this case, and you can't get out of there. But if you can get out of there, or you can avoid completely this situation that would lead to Davashim Miskaven, so then avoid the situation completely, and if you keep yourself in that situation, well, even if it wasn't your intention, too bad. It's going to be asur, according to Rava. And therefore, in this case, when he was able to go the other way, but he nonetheless stayed there, even though he's not intending to get benefit from it, Rava would argue that, even according to Reb Shimon, it would still be asur. Now, Ikadamri, there are those who say, Efshar velo michaven hanu plugtai Reb Yehuda Reb Shimon. There are those who say that in a situation where he was able to go the other way, but he didn't have any intention to get benefit, so that's the machlokes between Reb Yehuda and Reb Shimon. Kilu, Reb Yehuda would say, I don't care that he's not intending to get benefit, it's going to be asur, and everyone would agree that, both Abaye and Rava would agree that Reb Shimon's opinion would be that Davashim Miskaven is mutter. Lo efshar v'lo kamichaven, if he was unable to get out of there and he didn't have any kavana to get benefit, kuliyam lo pligi deshayu, well then certainly that's going to be okay. He's stuck there and he's not intending to get benefit anyways. Ki plige, where they argue, is to lo efshar v'kamichaven, where he's unable to get out of there, he's stuck there, but he's intending to get benefit from it. Taka smells good and he likes it. Now, according to Reb Shimon, who says that it's all about kavana, davar she'ein miskaven is mutter, but if you have kavana, it's asur. Well, he says, look, in this case, he's intending to get benefit, so it's asur. Ki plige alibud Reb Yehuda. Interesting. So, where they argue is according to Reb Yehuda, the Amar who said, lo shna miskaven, v'lo shna she'ein miskaven, efshar asur. Reb Yehuda who said that the kavana is irrelevant. If you were able to leave, right, meaning Rabbi Yehuda says that if he didn't have kavana, right, efshar v'lo kamichaven, if he was able to leave and he didn't have any kavana, so in that case it was, right, it's going to be asur. So then in the case where he was unable to leave, but he had intention to get benefit from it, so maybe we'll say that according to Rabbi Yehuda, kavana is completely irrelevant. And that's what it means, right? Meaning he said, if you could get out of there, but you didn't have kavana, so Rabbi Yehuda says that it's asur. Meaning, I don't care that you didn't have kavana. It's still asur. Well, maybe we can argue that it means that according to Rabbi Yehuda, kavana is completely irrelevant. In which case, in the case of lo efshar, when he was unable to leave, v'kamichavin, and he had kavana, who cares? Kavana is irrelevant. He was stuck there. He couldn't leave anyways. So, Abaye Rabbi Yehuda, so Abaye is going to say, like Rabbi Yehuda, that it's going to be permitted, i.e., kavana is completely irrelevant. He was stuck there, therefore it's permitted. So, V'Rava Amalach, and Rava is going to say to you, Ad kan lukam Rabbi Yehuda, she'ein miskaven ki miskaven el l'chumra, ava miskaven she'ein miskaven l'kula lo. Right, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, says Rava, no, Rabbi Yehuda is being stringent, kilu, when he says that if you're able to get out of there and you don't intend to get benefit, you're still going to be chayav. So that's the more stringent opinion. But don't then say that it's that kavanah is completely irrelevant, and then when he was unable to get out of there, but he had intention to get benefit, he would still be pater because he was unable to get out of there. No, in that case, he would go l'chumra. The point is that Rabbi Yehuda is always being more machmir. And therefore, if saying davar she'ein miskaven is asur is going to be more stringent, then we go more stringent, right? But also at the same time, if he was unable to get out of there, but he had intention to get benefit from it, don't say that according to Rabbi Yehuda, Kavanah is completely irrelevant and therefore he's going to be pater. No, in this case we would go l'chumra and say that he's going to be chayiv. Okay, yeah, I got a little bit confusing at the end over there, but it's an interesting concept at least, right? The concept of getting benefit against your will, right? And we'll break this down now in a minute. So at the beginning of the daf, so that was daf chafei. So at the beginning of the daf, we talked about eating and enjoying basar b'chalav, kilei kerem. Okay, so we said that kilei kerem is also b'chila, also b'anoah, and also basar b'chalav. We say is also b'chila and also b'anoah. There's a question about basar b'chalav. Is it also b'anoah, derech anoah also or not? Okay. There's also machlokas. Abai said that kilei kerem, you're chayiv even shelo k'derech anoah also. There was a man who said it would have to be derech anoah also. Then we got to kilei kerem. We said that the Gemara said if they're planted together, so then it's already a problem by when it's in the roots. But if they're not planted together, they're only joined after the fact, then it's based on the growth. Then we have those interesting Gemaras about Yayhareg val Yavor, the three things that you have to give up your life for. That is Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, and Shvichus Damim. Then at the end we got into the sugya of benefiting against your will. So lo efshar v'lo kamichavin, if you couldn't get out of there and you didn't have kavanah to get benefit anyway, then it's mutter. Efshar v'kamichavin, if you were able to get out of there, but nonetheless you stayed, and you're intending to get benefit from it, so everyone agrees that it's going to be aser. We get to machlokas between Abai and Rava in the following two cases. We had two different ways to understand these cases. Lo efshar v'kamichavin. So this was actually the last case that we got to when he was unable to leave, but so he was stuck there, but he had intention to get benefit from it. So the first way to so according to the first way to understand it, it would be aser because he had intention to get benefit. According to the second way to understand it, so according to Reb Shimon, you're definitely going to be chayiv because he says only davar she'ein miskaven is mutter. But if you have kavanah, it's going to be aser. But once we get to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, whose davar she'ein miskaven is aser, so then actually Abai understands Rabbi Yehuda as saying davar she'ein miskaven is aser, meaning the fact that you didn't have kavanah is completely irrelevant, and therefore a kavanah is completely irrelevant, and therefore the fact of the matter is that you're stuck here, and therefore it's going to be mutter. Whereas Rava says that Rabbi Yehuda goes lechumra in both cases, and in this case, since you have intention to smell it, you're going to be chayiv. To smell and get a benefit from it, you're going to be chayiv. Efshar v'lo kamichavin, in a case where you were able to get out of there, but you're just not having intention to get benefit from it. So one way to understand it is to say that it's machlokas between Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda. The Reb Shimon says that davar she'ein miskaven is mutter. Reb Yehuda says davar she'ein miskaven is aser. The other way to say it is that Reb Yehuda would definitely say that you are chayav, but Reb Shimon would say, so according to Reb Shimon, Rabbi would say that it's mutter because you're not having kavanah. Rava would say that it's going to be aser since it was something that you could have avoided, right? You could have gotten away, so better to do that. All right, well, that was Daf Chafei. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.